Welcome back to Media Champions here on Daily Ad Brief. I'm your host, Mary Therese Griffin, coming to you from Atlanta. And today on the program, we're very excited to have with us Mark Francis out in California. He joins us. He is the Director of Sports Management. He is a professor at Concordia University at Irvine, also a sports business lecturer out at UCLA. And you are a busy man, but thank you for carving in some time to chat with us today.
My pleasure. It's great to meet you.
You as well. So this whole big wide world of sports that you work in, and I think when you talk about sports management, of course, everybody top of mind, the first thing they think of is Jerry Maguire, right? Show me the money.
You know, ironically, that movie was made about a very close friend of mine. His name is Lee. Lee is obviously he's probably the world's best known sports agent. And he's currently Patrick Mahomes' agent, and I'm sure people would know that.
Well, I'm sure he's living the dream being Patrick Mahomes' agent, so good on him. When we think about the trends in marketing and how they've changed, let's just say since Jerry Maguire came out, it's a totally different ball game. Even in the world of sports management and marketing, can we talk about that with folks who might be thinking of getting into this industry?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it. Specific to ticketing, really the biggest change that we've seen, and it's even gotten, I guess the whole process has sped up because of COVID, is this whole area around digital ticketing and how stadiums have had to really literally, there's been an explosion of new technologies in stadiums, and certainly from every angle. And ticketing is no different than that. Where, especially now with COVID, if you go 2-3 years ago, pre-COVID, there were stadiums. The Rose Bowl is an example. We're still kind of toying with digital ticketing, but now it's a cashless stadium, and that stadium's 100 years old. Same thing with the Coliseum, and I think I'm sure you're seeing that right across the sports industry. The only event I've been to, major event during COVID, really is the UCLA LSU football game a couple of weeks ago. There were 75,000 there, and it was a completely different experience from an ingress standpoint, meaning just the process of getting into the stadium. Parking was all digital. Payment for that was digital, and that was always a big friction point for the Rose Bowl before pre-COVID. And everything you do now at the Rose Bowl is digital. There is no cash, even in the Fan Fest events, during the tailgating and all of that. Everything is digital. And one of the challenges that comes with that is, around 2015, this whole wave of stadium and stadium operators having to invest in high density Wi-Fi connectivity for mobile phones. That's really when it started en masse. And here we are 6 years later, and it's probably, it's the biggest change in sports ever, really, in that compact period of time. Since around 2015, it has changed everything in terms of the fan experience and how fans engage with their teams and favorite players and whatnot. And then you throw in the whole aspect of social media and the impact of that. So a lot of big changes.
Let's talk about those fans, because I'm sure, having just been to a game yourself, and you said there was about 75,000 there, maybe it's not as high in numbers as it should be because of COVID and the changes. How do you convince fans in this world of sports marketing that these changes are going to benefit them and that it's actually going to make things easier?
Well, I think ultimately it's the experience that the fans have when they go to venues that is going to dictate that. Now, I think the real challenge in sports marketing, and I remember I did an interview right after COVID shut everything down. This would be March of 2020. And I was asked, Mark Medina, he's a basketball writer with USA Today, and what I thought the sports industry was going to look like when this thing was over, in terms of COVID-19. And I looked at that time, and I kind of laugh when I look back at it now, because how long this thing has lasted. is I anticipated, based on what was going on in China at the time, how they got it under control relatively quickly in a few months, that we would be back full by the fall of 2020. And I felt that because sports are such a big part of American life and Canadian life, that having something like that taken away, something like our favorite things taken away, that would naturally create this huge demand, and that we'd see live attendance like we'd never seen it before. Obviously, that didn't happen because COVID, continues to linger and continues to impact, live events. Here in California, we're open now pretty much across the board, but like anything over 10,000 people, everybody has to wear masks and all of these things. And I like to call these types of things friction points. So consider this language in the industry is, the driveway to driveway experience is what everybody talks about in terms of the live experience. And so what's the traffic like? What is the parking like? What is the ticket purchasing process like? The ingress to the stadium, how long does that take? How convenient is it? How many, we now have another layer of security in terms of stadiums checking for vaccines and negative COVID tests and whatnot. So that literally causes a backlog at the entrance to the stadium. And so when a fan is sitting at home and they're deciding whether or not they're going to go to a live event, all of these things come into mind very quickly. Well, I have my 80-inch digital TV here. I have my beer fridge beside me, my dog, the whole bit. I can walk to the beach in 10 minutes. And I can still watch the game on my phone, or I can choose to watch it on my big screen here at home, and I don't have to deal with all of those friction points. That's the challenge to me for live events, because fans have been forced to do this now for almost 2 years. And it's going to change. It's going to be an interesting study in consumer behavior in terms of, have fans found other things to do during sports? If you look at ratings in sports over the last year and a half, they're not good right across the board. The Tokyo Olympics was the least watched Olympics in history, and you see a lot of that type of language around every sport. The NFL right now, they've been fortunate because their season was not interrupted in the first time around, and it's certainly now they're back to full crowd, so they weren't affected really as much as the other sports. And we'll see how this kind of Delta wave impacts it. But I think going forward, stadium owners and stadium operators really need to optimize that live experience at the stadium and offer things, conveniences that in special events and those kinds of things that you can't get at home. And so it's that whole fear of missing out aspect that they really need to engage in and facilitate.
And nobody wants to miss out. Mark Francis, you are a wealth of knowledge. We are all your students today. Thank you for being on the program. We really appreciate you carving us into your schedule. Hope we can see you again.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
You bet. If you want to know more about Mark Francis and the things that he's teaching his students and these new trends in sports management and sports marketing, all you have to do is go to our website and we'll connect you. That's dailyadbrief.com. Hope you join us again for more Media Champions. I'm Mary Therese.